Yeah, it hasn't been fun. Two tough losses in a row, but what's that peeking over the horizon? Is that still MSU football's goals still in front of them? Let's talk to Dalton Shetler about it. Let's go.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode of Locked On Spartans is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On Spartans. It's your team in green and white 5 days a week. Yes, even during the second edition of a football bye week. Please rate, review, subscribe, comment below on YouTube how you are feeling about the next 3 games for Michigan State. Can they still go bowling? Because Dalton Shetler, yes, of the Spartan Media Network, just a fantastic play-by-play voice of the women's basketball team, which we're going to get to here later on in this show. I know it hasn't been fun the last 2 weeks. A lot of emotion, 2 emotional losses, one against your rival, of course, the other against another team with the first-year head coach. Look, I'm not saying that people are irrational to be upset. I was certainly disappointed Saturday, but you got a much clearer mind than a lot of us do, Dalton. Is it safe to say that, look, the realistic goals before the season are still very much within reach by year's end? Is it an easy yes?
I think so. And thanks for having me, by the way, Matt.
Oh, you're the best. Yeah.
But I that's how I came away feeling. And obviously I've seen and talked with a lot of fans and felt the emotion that comes from it. And I think it's okay to be frustrated because you realized along the way there were opportunities. But before the season, if you asked me, I would have put this Michigan State football season at probably 5-7, maybe 6-6. I thought if you got postseason play, if you became bowl eligible, that was a success in year one under head coach Jonathan Smith. I think part of it that's kind of shifted maybe the calibration on the goals for many of the fans is you start 3-0 and everybody always feels kind of the prisoner moment success and what maybe could be. I think watching, like, as you just mentioned, Indiana and Kurt Cignetti in year one get off to a 9-0 start, you kind of look over and you're like, well, why them, not us? Right. Like, I think there's some of that takes place. I liken it a lot to just honestly the instant gratification that happens in society all over and in sports. Like, honestly, Matt, if you look at the NFL, I think about this a lot. It was just 10 or 15 years ago that you used to draft a high quarterback and you put him on the bench behind a veteran. You let him learn, you let him develop for 3 or 4 years, and then you kind of let it rip and you see where your franchise was. And then in the last handful of years, besides like a Patrick Mahomes, a lot of franchises are saying, no, the value is we get a rookie quarterback on that rookie deal, that rookie contract, and that's our window to go win. That's what the 49ers did. They paid everybody else but the quarterback to start. You know what I mean? Like, there's a whole different recalibration. So I think there's some of that going on. But ultimately, heading into the season, look, you got to 3-0. It was a good win at Maryland. And then you take on a Boston College team that was just in the top 25 a week or two before you played them. Mm-hmm. They only dropped out because they lost to a number 6 Missouri team. So you fall there. You fall to what is a top 3 Ohio State team at home. You fall to who's the number 1 team in the country right now at Oregon. Then you had a bye, and then you came back with an impressive win against Iowa. And then you lose, obviously, on down the road to Michigan. That was a frustrating one. I think that's where a lot of it just kind of boiled. But heading into the year, Michigan was a top 15 team. Now, Michigan definitely looks a lot different than people expected before that year. And I think that's where some of this, I think that's where some of the shifts. And then Indiana's now a much better team than you expected before the season. And as you look at the last 3 games, Matt, you got to win 2 of them to get to that 6-win goal, which we talked about before the year. That would have been a success, at least in my mind. I think a lot of people were at the time were thinking that as well. You still got a tough Illinois team to conquer. Mm-hmm. And then you have Purdue, who's really been struggling, and you have Rutgers, who's on a slide. So 6 wins is still attainable for this team. And I think, honestly, if we go back to August, that's something we all would have signed up for.
100%. And, you know, this is the crime that we did in the offseason is that, yes, 7-5, that's our prediction right here. But, hey, if you just get to 6 wins, that's a bowl game. And, look, guys, I know it's not, you know, the sexiest bowl game that we are projected to go to because right before this conversation, Dalton, I did look at some bowl projections here. Now, USA Today They got us going back to the concrete jungle of New York and the Pinstripe Bowl, baby. That's right. But across the board, unanimous decision based on Action Network, CBS Sports, 24/7 Sports, Athlon, and both the bowl projectors at ESPN. All the game above bowl, that is the Detroit Bowl game. But look, is it going to look as cool as your Rose Bowl quarter zip that you have in the closet from a decade ago? Probably not, but you know what? We also haven't been able to buy any bowl gear for 2 years, so I would not mind any bowl game. It is still in front of Michigan State. Again, I'm not saying that you all should be happy with what happened the last 2 weeks, but zoom all the way out before the season. Vegas gives you the over-under at 4.5, and let's actually go right there, Dalton, because friend of the program, Casual Big Ten, writes in a finance question. Am I going to win this over 5 wins ticket I've been waiting on? I'm going to win it right. Now, K-Ford ratings, we've mentioned them throughout the season. They give you a 40% chance to win against Illinois, 83% against Purdue, and a 51% chance against Rutgers. Dalton, I'll let you do it. Can you guarantee our friend that he's going to win this over 5 wins? Can you guarantee 2 wins in the last 3 games of the season? Say it with your chest, Dalton. Let's go.
My stamping fades pretty quick, so there's no guarantees from me.
Okay.
But I do like the game against Purdue, and I kind of see it that way. I think both of those other 2 are winnable. I think 6 is possible, but I would say, Matt, and this is again me cowardly saying it, not with my chest. But with a Michigan State team that we've seen where the frustrations exist is because it's been self-inflicted issues, turnovers, penalties, whatever it is. And when you're kind of rolling the dice like that, I don't think you can really guarantee anything, but it's certainly possible.
I don't hate that at all. And look, just to prove that we're just not all sunshine and roses over here, one of the other issues is pass rush or complete lack thereof a pass rush.
Yep.
And if you want more on that, in 2 episodes, we're going to talk with Chase Glasser about the pass rush. And we all know the stat by now. They haven't had a sack since the Boston College game. But guys, just to give you a little teaser of that conversation coming up, it's been 12 total pressures since the Boston College game. Let's say you're not really involved in the football. I'll just tell you right now, that's really bad. That's not winning football. So you need to have something out of this bye week here from your quarterback, of course, that had a relapse to his turnover issues last week, from the penalties, and also from the pass rush. You need to see it here, but Dalton, not to say this team is like feeble and needs multiple bye weeks in a season, but God, I felt like the last bye week really came at a fantastic time. Off a 3-game losing streak against 2 minor league NFL teams. I think this is another bye week that came at maybe even a better time for this team. Is that safe to say, as cowardly as that sounds?
No, I think it's fair. I think it gives you a chance to reset, kind of recalibrate a little bit. But also, I mean, besides just the losses that were strung together, Matt, I was there on the sideline for that game.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember watching Charles Brantley walk by and hop on the cart. I remember watching Malik Spencer walk by, come back in street clothes, Anthony Jones kind of shakily walking off, and Aidan Chiles walking off. Like at this point, as often happens in football, right? You get to November and health starts to become one of the biggest variables on if your team's a winner or a loser in some of these November games. And right now, Michigan State's got to get healthy before anything else because, I mean, you talk about the lack of pass rush. If you're down, say Brantley, say you're down Spencer, and of course you've been down Tatum, that's a lot. There was a lot of youth, a lot of freshmen in that secondary in that game against Indiana, and that would be concerning in some of those remaining games if you want to get to those 6 wins.
Not to put you in a completely awkward spot right here, but we have gotten questions about Brantley's injury, Chiles, of course. Now, Smith did say, I will set this up, that no injuries during the game against Indiana are long-term. They're not going to cost anyone the rest of the season. Do you have any idea if Brantley will be good to go in 2 weeks here, or is that all to be determined?
I actually don't. All I know about it is that it was lower body. That's all I know about it. With Chiles, I just know it was hand. I have no idea the time table for either of those, especially with it being bye week. The media's not around the building as much to ask some questions to gain a little bit more insight. So right now it's a question mark.
More to come with Dalton Shetler, but first need to talk your ear off about Hims, guys. Hey, ever feel like you need a little boost in the bedroom? Well, it's time to stop worrying about your performance and get Hims so you can feel confident knowing you can stay hard whenever you're in the mood. Now, Hims is changing the men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. Hims provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints and Viagra and Cialis in their generics for up to 95% cheaper. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor's visits. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That is HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. hims.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are chewable compounded products, which are not approved by or verified for safety by effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with the healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. Also, guys, need to talk your ears off about FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook. You already know that if you've been listening to this show this whole season, because they take care of you on college football Saturday, or you know what? That's going to be empty for Michigan State this week on the bye week. So mosey on over to NFL Sunday. That's right, my Detroit Lions, maybe your Detroit Lions too. 3.5-point favorites on the road, Sunday Night Football. Get in with the action at America's #1 sportsbook because, well, right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need all in one place to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can also check out latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You will get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's over at FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook, guys. Again, FanDuel.com.
Just to keep it rosy in the midst of the storm here, like obviously Nick Marsh, we coined him as alien in waiting last week with Chase Glasser. We're talking about Jeremiah Smith, Ryan Williams, and true freshman phenoms that already seem like they're from Neptune. Marsh maybe not even be in waiting right here. Outside of Marsh, is there anything that you've seen last few weeks that has really impressed you from this team, or something that's just fun to watch that you just want to make sure you highlight here?
The biggest thing I would say is Marsh. And I really just think that's kind of where you go. That catch he had in the end zone, I think you saw the best of Aidan Chiles on that same play as you see the best of Nick Marsh. You saw him extend the play, move the pocket, scramble outside, and extend it and make something happen on a third down. So I still buy a lot of stock in the potential of what Aidan Chiles can be. Obviously, look, we all signed up and knew that you have a young quarterback. Some mistakes are going to come along with it. And that's kind of the grind you have to go through, the process you have to go through. So I still believe like seeing flashes like that from Chiles is something to get excited about. Honestly, Matt, the thing I had gotten most excited about in the first two drives in that game down the road at Michigan was the offensive line was controlling the game against Michigan. And again, we talk about injuries. This Michigan State offensive line started the season with low depth. And they've been dealing with injuries. And for them to handle Michigan up front the way they did in those first two drives, I thought that was something to get pretty excited about. I'm curious how that finishes these last 3 weeks, because I thought that line really played well in those first two drives at the very least.
Yeah, even the Iowa game too. Like they were just pushing Iowa all over the place in a way that Iowa doesn't get pushed around. So that's why it was just so shocking, and maybe it hit fans like myself to the core. It's like, oh my God, we just reverted like back to after all that progress. But look, obviously, we talked about the depth, the injuries, and the talent, perhaps, of course, because also on the other side of that field is a real Indiana team. Like I came away from that game, like we all knew their offense is good. They got good coaches. They have a lot of good experienced transfers. My biggest takeaway that I didn't realize is just how real those trenches were for Indiana. Like we've seen Michigan State hold their own in a sense against Ohio State, for example, but it was a beatdown, I guess is the way I could put it. So that was my biggest takeaway out of the game from who the opponent was point of view. Am I crazy for thinking that Indiana has a shot here against Ohio State? Not to make this locked on Hoosiers for a second, but like, or is that just prisoner of the moment right here?
No, I don't. I mean, they've gotten a 9-0 for a reason. And I would say a while ago, like maybe 4 weeks ago, I'd be like, yeah, come on. What are we doing? But after that Nebraska game, not that Nebraska's in contention of Big Ten championship aspirations or anything, but going into that, I was like, this is a bit of a coin flip. I'm kind of curious how Indiana handles. And they beat them 56-7.
And then watching the way they just dismantle teams. Look, Indiana's schedule hasn't been the toughest, but the way they destroy opponents, like there's something pretty sound about that that's speaking volumes.
Yes.
At this point, I'm done doubting Kurt Signetti. Like during the Big Ten media days, talking with him and stuff, I was like, this is the most confident man I've ever met in my life.
Right.
Like, I just want an ounce of his confidence. And then he gets up there and he says, look, I've been picked second to last twice. One time we won it all, and the next time we were playing for the conference championship. And you're kind of sitting there and you're like, sounds good, man, but you're at Indiana in the Big Ten conference in year one. Like, what are you expecting? Now that they're at 9-0, like I'm just gonna sit back and watch where the Hoosiers go.
Before flipping the page to women's basketball, any final thoughts on football that you just want to get out to the people right now? Because we've covered a lot of it. Obviously, there's still more to come later this week, but anything that you just want to bring up, Dalton, before we flip the page here.
I just would reiterate the first point, and I don't know if this is helpful therapy with your frustrations, but
it depends on the day. Yeah. I'll be
for
honest.
the last 6 games, you've either faced a ranked team or a team that was ranked in the preseason.
Yeah.
Between Boston College, Ohio State, Oregon, Iowa, Michigan, Indiana, like that is a gauntlet, and you knew it was going to be a tough stretch heading into the season. Like if you were analyzing it before, you said hopefully you beat FAU and Prairie View A&M. Hopefully you split Maryland, Boston College. A lot of people I talked to, that was the feeling. You try to survive the stretch. Nobody really thought Indiana was going to be this, so you thought that was one of the winnable games.
Of course.
But now you still have 3 games to go. You just got to win 2 of them to get postseason eligible. I just don't think the sky is falling. I think it's okay to be frustrated because you've seen the potential that exists there, and that it's really Michigan State kind of getting in the way of itself in some of those losses. It's okay to be frustrated, but believe in the process. Let this thing develop. Just give it some time. The sky's not falling.
No, I like it, and I've just 2 home games to end the season, all against 3 teams that are in the bottom third of the Big Ten as far as passing the ball goes. And I don't know. If they do stumble to the finish line and end at 5-7, I'll join everyone else on the okay. That was a little disappointing train, but until then, there's reason for hope. It's not just me, the old Michigan State homer over here. We already said the numbers. You're going to have a more than 50% chance to win 2 of the next 3 games, and even that other one, Illinois. I'm sorry. I'm not all too impressed with them so far this season. Sure, they only have 3 losses, but, gee, I don't know. That overtime win against Purdue, I'm not all too impressed with that win. No, I'm just getting carried away here. Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Now, here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make Z-Biotics your first drink of the night, drink responsibly, and you will feel your best tomorrow. I heard from so many listeners over the weekend, whether it was, hey, over at the tailgates, they made it their first drink of the tailgate, or hey, even ran into a listener that said, I did this before, having a few at a Halloween party, woke up feeling fresh the next day. Don't just take my word for it. Take their words for it too. Now, how on earth do you use this thing? It's simple, guys. Step 1, you drink the pre-alcohol. For best results, make it your first drink of the night. Step number 2, drink responsibly. You still got to keep it within yourself, okay? No ripping 45,000 shots and expecting this to just be all hunky-dory. No, you still got to act like a human that night, okay? And then step number 3, enjoy tomorrow. Wake up feeling refreshed the next day. Guys, it is that simple. Go to zbiotics.com/lockedoncollege to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use promo code LOCKEDONCollege at checkout. All one word, Locked On College. Z-Biotics is backed with 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're not satisfied for any reason, we will refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head over to zbiotics.com/lockedoncollege and use code LOCKEDONCollege at checkout for 15% off. Guys, also needed to talk your ears off about Game Time, the greatest ticketing app out there. We got 2 more home games at Spartan Stadium this season. Go start looking at the great deals over there at Game Time. Why do I love Game Time? Well, more reasons than I can count, but I'll hit you with 2 of them right now. The first one, how much money you can save, just like I talked about. Hey, even just weeks before the game, open up the app right now. You're going to find great flash deals for great seats in great sections. Or Hey, if you just want to walk up to Spartan Stadium the morning of a game or even 5 minutes before kickoff, the last-minute ticket deals are also outstanding. The second reason I love Game Time, no hassle, no ridiculousness. It is 2 taps and the tickets are sent straight to your phone. Guys, download the app today. That is the Game Time app. Use code LOCKEDONCollege, and you are going to save 20% off of your first purchase. Again, guys, download the Game Time app today. Enjoy the simplicity of buying tickets with it, and also use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. What time is it? You already know it. It's game time. Dalton, let's talk women's basketball. Now, I do have to preface the conversation with this. We are talking Tuesday morning, later on in the day. The Spartans do play Oakland University, and in true Locked On Spartans fashion, that means that the Spartans, unfortunately, will be opening up their season with a loss because we're going to talk about, how hopeful they are for the season, good things coming. Before all that, let's just address the elephant in the room. We jinx everything on the show, so Dalton, I'm sorry that you have to call a loss tonight, but let's say in a crazy world they actually do win this game. Well, coming off last year, surprised everyone with a top 4 seed in the Big Ten tournament. Yes, they were knocked out first round of the NCAA tournament. Point blank, Dalton, what kind of a season would deem this one a success for the women's Spartans basketball team?
That's actually a great question. I do want to know the record on your jinxes here on Locked On Spartans.
It's like 205, I think. It's not good. We can say, hey, guys, the sun's going to rise tomorrow. And then, that'd just be the end of times. So that's how confident I am in that. So.
That's awesome.
No, it's great. Yeah, it's awesome.
In terms of success for Michigan State women's basketball, look, to give the full context, kind of like you did for last year, this was a squad that had lost most of its top scoring from the year prior. It brings in a new head coach in Robin Freilich last year, and then it suffered, I think, 4 season-ending injuries, if memory serves right. It had a player rotation of just 7 players were in the rotation. Only 2 of them were 6 feet or taller. And you're kind of sitting there and you're like, okay, we go through the Big Ten. Let's see what happens. And Michigan State, along the way, went 22-9, went back to the NCAA tournament, finished 4th in the Big Ten Conference, broke a school record with 82.8 points per game, broke another school record with 283 made threes. What they did, it was just a magic carpet ride of a season where Michigan State just kind of conquered everything. Weirdly, with the injuries and adversity kind of meshed and blended together, and it kind of showed everybody a new way, and the staff rolled with it. Like everybody was bought in, just had a wonderful season. For this year, 7 of those players come back. 8 newcomers now to the team. You have 4 freshmen, you have 4 transfers. One of the returners is Julia Ayrold. She was all Big Ten first team last year. She averaged over 15 points a game, over 7 rebounds a game. Look, right now she's top 5 in Michigan State history for blocked shots. This is somebody who just 2 years ago was averaging 2 points a game. And then last year exploded under Freilich, kind of moved positions a little bit, especially given the context we just did. Kind of had to.
Right.
But ends up finding herself and her own identity a little bit in it. She's going to be a lot of fun to watch. She's going to have a big year. Theron Halleck comes back. She was the 6th player of the year in the Big Ten Conference last year. In Big Ten play, she was averaging north of 13 points per game. She's going to be handling the rock a lot. And look, this is Michigan State team that I said scores about 83 points a game. Theron Halleck is a big part of getting the tempo going. They call her the spark plug. Like she just gets in and just foot on the gas, takes off down in fast break. Transfers, we'll hit on those real quick. Grace Van Sluten comes over from Oregon. She averaged 15.7 rebounds a game there. I mean, her and Julia Ayrold standing side by side to each other. These are a little bit of the same mold. Like you have 2 highly versatile front court players now that can stretch, can do a lot of different things. Those 2 playing high-low basketball together is going to be a lot of fun. Emma Shumate comes from Ohio State. She's a sharpshooter. Nyla Hampton, 2-time MAC Defensive Player of the Year, who played for Robin at Bowling Green previously, then transferred to Ball State last year, and now is at Michigan State with her again. That's a big piece. And another guard in Jaden Simmons, who transfers from Arizona State, where she was top 20 all-time in scoring at Arizona State as well. So I know I'm throwing a lot at you, but just to let everybody know what this Michigan State makeup is for this year. In terms of success, that's the good question, Matt, because, look, the Big Ten adding these 4 teams, USC is 3rd in the country right now.
Yes, right.
UCLA's 5th in the country. This conference is ridiculous. And you're looking now at a spot where preseason bracketology has 10 teams from the Big Ten making it into the NCAA tournament on the women's side, maybe even 11. Michigan State wants to be a part of that group. Like that's how you find success with this Michigan State squad. Like last year, they finished 4th in the Big Ten, just behind Iowa, Indiana, and Ohio State. That was awesome. But you start sprinkling in some of these other teams, and a lot of this other Big Ten competition's pretty good. It's going to be pretty interesting. And the last thing I'll say on that front, Matt, is USC, UCLA, they're projected 1 and 2. Ohio State's projected 3rd. From 4 to 9, nobody really knows what to do. Like, we're making picks, but it's a lot of question marks. It's a lot of guesstimates. Honestly, any of those teams from 4 to 9, and honestly, after watching Michigan against South Carolina on Monday night, opening night, I mean, they almost beat the Gamecocks in Las Vegas on opening night. South Carolina just escaped. So now we're talking about maybe 4 through 11 is pretty open. We don't know where those teams are going to fall. That's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Well, perfect. I've set you up for failure on this question then, because Alex from the mailbag writes in women's basketball question. Do you think MSU women's basketball is underrated going into this year? With the way the guards play under Coach Freilich and having depth at the forward and center position, they seem poised to have an excellent year. Now, of course, underrated because they're not in the top 5 of the preseason poll, and that's all that the Big Ten drops. It's just a top 5. They don't have the full 36-team ranking that is now the Big Ten. They also had no player on the preseason All-Big Ten list, but just like you said, Dalton, certainly reason for hope. Grace Van Sluten, the top transfer that you got out of Oregon, you scored 82 points per game last year. There is reason for it, but I guess just like you're saying, that you could just throw a blanket over 4 through 9 or 4 through 11. Is it? But with that said, hey, the chip on the shoulder is there. A lot of disrespect in the offseason is what this team's getting. Is that the feeling you're getting?
Oh, I think this squad doesn't even really care so much, but I'll say from my end, I thought Julia Ayrault not being on the All Big Ten first team was an absolute snub.
A little surprising.
Yeah. And look, I mean, especially with USC and UCLA coming in, there's a lot of players. Like when I first was making my list, I got to 17 and it had to cut 7 more off to send in on the ballot.
Yeah.
So like it is razor thin, but I thought that was an absolute snub. But no, I do think they're underrated. A lot of people I talk to, other podcasts I jump on about Big Ten women's basketball, they have Michigan State. A lot of them are voting for them around 9th in the Big Ten.
Okay.
What I find interesting is they scored 83 points a game last year, right? And they played fast. That wasn't just because they didn't have so much size because of what the roster was and all the injuries. That's how Robin Freilich wants to play, period.
Yeah.
So it kind of blended together pretty well. Take a look at these stats, Matt. Last year, Michigan State women's basketball, 2nd in the country in assist to turnover ratio at 1.6.
Wow.
It was the 6th highest scoring offense in the nation. It was the 8th best turnover margin in the country. It was the 9th best team at making threes per game and 9th best in assists as well. The point is, this team didn't get necessarily any different besides just longer. It's still just as fast. They're going to full court press. They're going to create havoc and cause turnovers. And if they can do that blueprint successfully, where you're talking about them being one of the top 5, top 10 in creating turnovers, like there is an avenue for success for this Michigan State team. And that's a pretty big reason why I'm believing that they're going to have a pretty strong year.
Love it. And last question before we get you out the door and enjoying the rest of your week here. This is more of just like how do you do your job question, because look, they had the exhibition against Wayne State. It was, guys, what I'm about to say isn't like one of like my bits or my over exaggerations. This was literally the halftime score, 58-5 at halftime. When you're on the mic, Dalton, are you just having just outright sympathy for Wayne State? What is going through your head as you're watching a bludgeoning that is just indescribable on a scoreboard? Are you hoping that the team comes back out at halftime? Like what was it like being at that one? Because 58-5 at halftime, I give major credit to Wayne State for finishing every minute of that game.
Well, I will tell you. So the exhibition, we actually didn't end up broadcasting on the radio.
Oh, shoot. I'm sorry.
So,
shoot.
No,
Okay.
no. But I still was there, and I was sitting next to the staff and behind the bench. And I remember looking over at somebody, and I was like, thank goodness this one wasn't broadcasted. Because, I mean, well, the good news is think there'll be a lot of highlights out of it, right? But after about the 30th. The one unique thing I'll say about that game that maybe your listeners may not be aware of, Julia Aralt, who we've been talking a lot about, right? One of the captains on this Michigan State team. Her sister plays for Wayne State.
Okay.
And Julia's father, Andy, is one of the assistant coaches at Wayne State. So it was a giant Aralt family reunion, which was actually a really cool thing. And look, the game was in hand, as you said, it was 58-5 at halftime. So as it's going in the second half, Annabelle hit a 3 for Wayne State, and I shot over a look at our bench, and Julia Aralt jumped off the bench and was exploding in cheer for her sister, which was really neat.
That's awesome.
Okay. Exhibition season.
Okay, there we go. All right, so it wasn't all doom and gloom for the Wayne State side. But, look, obviously a step down in level of competition and everything. Yes. But look, no matter who you're playing, 58-5 at halftime. My eyeballs almost popped out of my head like a cartoon dog. That was.
I looked to the person next to me and said, "I don't think I've ever seen 58-5. Like I can't remember like seventh grade tough. AAU basketball 58-5, and I've been a part of some of those, but I don't know if it was ever 58-5.
Back in my high school sports reporting days, I've been at some lopsided games, but that's something there, folks. That's Dalton Shetler. Does fantastic work, as you guys already know. Dalton, anything else you want to plug here before we let you go and enjoy the rest of your week, my man?
Make sure you follow us all along for the Michigan State women's basketball season. You can catch every game wherever you are on your computer by going to msuspartans.com/watch. You can also listen, of course, on the local radio stations. And by the way, I do want to throw this in here too, Matt, real quick. We're doing something new at the network with our coaches shows. So they are live streamed on Twitter or X and Facebook on the account. So if it's the Jonathan Smith show, go to MSU Football on Twitter or X and you can watch the show there now. And we also have them for podcasts later on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. So you can catch out all the MSU coaches shows. That's a new feature we got going at the network, and we're pretty excited about it.
Look at just making big moves over there. That's what I'm talking about. Folks, you already know it. We will be back later this week. We're going to talk about this Thursday basketball game against Niagara. And, we're never done talking about MSU football around these parts. But, folks, until then, hey, take care of yourselves. Love you all. Go Green.